Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Triumph After Trauma today. I'm your host, Jordan Elise, and today we have Tanya McKenzie with us. So if you haven't heard of Tanya McKenzie, she's a well-known author, public speaker, community activist, child advocate, and a leadership trainer. So really does everything, which is so amazing. So first and foremost, thank you, Tanya, for being here today and sharing your expertise with us.
I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I didn't mention, you're also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and trauma yourself. And so I'd love to just start off by diving into some of your own experiences, which I know you also wrote a book, an incredible memoir that we'll get to a little bit later on. But if you could just tell us a bit more about your personal story.
Yeah, let me get right into it. I first experienced trauma at the age of 4.5. The funny thing is, I used to ask people all the time, what were some of your first experiences? And people couldn't believe that I remembered what happened at 4.5. But I noticed that people would always remember the most dynamic things that happened in their life. Some people was like Disneyland or a new pet or even a death. For me, I was 4.5 when I witnessed my mother get shot and her boyfriend was murdered in front of me. From there, we wound up going to a federal witness protection program. My mother actually perjured herself on the stand for this trial, so she survived. She perjured herself on the stand because the actual murderer was my uncle, her uncle, and she was doing it for the family. But, you know, at the end of the day, she didn't tell the whole truth because she was trying to protect family. And we wound up spending time in a federal prison for women with children. A lot of people have heard of those and never experienced them. And I actually did. And because of the lifestyle that we were living, we did wind up spending some time in a homeless shelter also. With that, by the time I was 7, I had gone through all of this. And just that lifestyle led us to a situation where, there's levels of instability, right? And what I do know for sure is that pedophiles and those that are looking to prey on young children look for parents that are distracted or have other things going on, and they take advantage when they have that opportunity. For me, the first time I was assaulted, I was 13. My mom used to work on the weekends and I would stay with my aunt. We were very close. And so, it was a safe place for me. My mom used to ask me all the time, she would say, hey, does your uncle ever make you feel weird? Or does he ever offer you any candy? Or, does he ever have you sit on his lap and give you money and things like that? And I used to feel like, what are you talking about? Like, this is crazy. And, at that age where girls start to be maybe a little promiscuous or curious about themselves and relationships, it was his opportunity to take advantage of the fact that, one, my mom was not around, and two, she was distracted. So I used to spend the night at my aunt's. When I woke up one night, he was violating me on the couch. The best part about this is when I did tell my mom about it, she believed me. But that's also the worst part because it was obvious that she knew that he had tendencies to do these types of things. So when I talk about things like making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, it's based on the fact that people are afraid to say the direct and honest things that need to be said to prevent these types of things from happening. So had she just said, hey, he has been known to do things that are inappropriate to young girls or to other women in this family. Mm-hmm. You should stay away or out of situations where you can be alone with him because this could happen. Those are direct conversations that people are afraid to have. Had those conversations been had, there's a possibility that those types of things would have been prevented, right? But when you're afraid to be direct and be honest about what you know, and say certain words, running from them. You're afraid of what they could possibly mean. But on the upside, think of what kind of drama and trauma you could actually prevent by being honest with the people around you. So as excited as I was about her believing me and supporting me when I went to the police, I was also that upset when I realized you knew some things that could have kept this from happening. So that's where we talk about really being honest and being direct and having those uncomfortable conversations, because at the end of the day, that is what can prevent drama and trauma from happening to young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an underlying theme in your book. It's all about having those uncomfortable conversations, initiating them, really simplifying the complex thing that is trauma so that other people can, be freed of those shackles of trauma and abuse in their own situations. But really, for everyone listening out there, I hope, even what Tanya shared so far is an encouragement and a testament to the importance of breaking the silence. Even if not for yourself and your own personal journey, if you do know of somebody and their sexual deviancy or their tendencies, you could save somebody else, from
Absolutely.
the trauma that they might endure later on. So breaking the silence and having those conversations is so incredibly important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And learning that when I did have younger siblings and he was still around, I was able to have that conversation with them, right?
Yes.
This is someone you want to stay away from. This is someone you do not want to be in a unsafe space with. This is someone you cannot trust with your safety.
Yeah.
Because you can be violated, and what being violated looks like to a young girl. Because
exactly. And
not
sometimes
having those conversations leaves them unprepared for what could possibly happen, and that's unfair.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to go into those details, but to describe it, obviously you want to make it age appropriate, but a 13-year-old girl understands changes in her body, and you can at least describe, hey, if X, Y, and Z happens, it's completely inappropriate and you need to say something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in college, it happened again. And again, I was asleep and I was violated in my sleep. It really makes you angry when you feel like there should be a safe space and someone takes advantage of that. That's where it comes from. You feel like you're in a safe space and it's violated. So again, dealing with that again, then you start thinking, okay, is it me? Is it something I'm giving off that makes people feel like it's okay to do that to me? Do I have that little value in life that my space, my personal space has no value and you can do with it what you want? That's a really almost terrifying position to be in, because when we don't value ourselves, what do? We get self-destructive, right? We do self-destructive things, or we have negative self-talk, and that leads nowhere positive. Nowhere.
It just compounds the guilt and the shame. So the trauma happens to you, and then the reaction to it is often, as you said, self-destructive, self-harm.
Yep.
And then it's just this compounding thing.
Yeah, one of the other things, though, that I want to make clear to anyone that's watching this is when I did report the first situation to my mother, and we went to the police. And they let me know, it was back in the day before there was DNA testing and all this good stuff, that there was a possibility that nothing could happen because it was his word against mine. But I still went ahead and pressed charges because not only did he violate me, he used to abuse my aunt. So in my 13-year-old mind, I thought, if I put this on record, at least when she's ready to get out of this situation, there will be a record. How I was thinking that at 13, not quite sure.
Yeah.
But what wound up happening is after my mom passed in 99, I took custody of my two sisters. And we eventually had to go to court for them. She was trying to take custody of them from me. I was like, no, because you still live with a pedophile. It's not happening. So we had to go to court. And because I had reported it so many years before, when it was time for the judge to review and make a decision, she clearly made it so that this is a matter of public record, that this man has violated another young girl, and no, you cannot have custody. So, it makes a difference when you do have the opportunity to put things on record, even if you might not get the result that you want. it's important that you make record of what has happened to you. Many of us would, shy away from that process because it can be quite intimidating, but it's important because it can definitely save a life or someone else's pain or trauma in the future.
Yeah.
And if you didn't like it happening to you, you definitely want to make sure, if you can, that it doesn't happen to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for myself, when I disclosed about the abuse, it was really to protect my younger siblings at the
Right.
time. So that was my motivation, because of course those feelings of guilt and shame and unworthiness were so, I didn't at the time even care what happened to me, but I knew that I needed to protect them.
Absolutely.
But now looking back, even giving, my victim impact statement and going through that process was actually a very empowering. At the time it was difficult, obviously, and there were certain things in themselves that were, I guess, traumatic, but such a beautiful start to my healing journey, where I could actually kind of step into my power and take back that control that I just didn't have.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So
ma'am. That's all important. Any opportunity that you can have to cease some level of power and control in your own life is one step further into your healing. The hard part is, it's not always easy. Because of the murder that took place when I was a young girl, I wound up getting registered for victim services. That helped me later on in life, again, because when I'm in my 20s, 21, early 20s, starting my own family, and this man is starting to come up for parole, victim services lets you know
yeah.
what's going on with them. So you get to make a decision. Again, this is where you seize power. You get to make a decision as to how and what role you want to play in keeping yourself safe and the public. For many years, would write letters, reach out to my district attorney, the board, the parole board, because I felt at that time that's what I needed to make myself feel safe.
Mhm.
And there is a level of empowerment when someone says, you can play a role in this. You get to have a voice, especially when you are a child when things happen, because that's when you have no voice, right? That's when
Yeah.
we have no voice. We have no choice. We have no options. We are really just living in a world that our parents or guardians create. So
Mhm.
these things that are taking place, we have no power, no control. So when you do, at any point, when you do have a level of control, power, voice, empowerment into what happens not just to you, but to people that you might not even know,
Yeah.
take it. You don't know what's going to happen, but what you do know is if something bad happens and you didn't take that opportunity, you're just going to feel worse. That definitely will not make you feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know my own experience was thinking that my stepdad who violated me, that it was just me, something about me that caused it to happen, right? And after going through extensive therapy and just talking about kind of the tactics he used and the intense manipulation, that every therapist confirmed over and over again, like, you were not his first victim. Like, you are
Amen.
not, there's nothing about, you were wrong place, wrong time. And because you spoke up, you probably prevented this from happening to countless other people. So it's really incredible when we use our voices and we come together. And for those listening, really want to encourage you, Tanya and I were part of this amazing community of survivors that have all been through it.
No, that is one word that I don't think that we use enough, is manipulation.
Mm,
These people become very good at emotional and physical manipulation,
yeah.
especially when you find out you weren't the first. Please believe if you don't act, you won't be the last, because they get good at picking their prey, preying on those that they feel like they can manipulate.
100%. I know for my experience was my mom was a single mom, young, going through school, doing everything right to be a great mom. And he kind of came in as this white knight who had a really stable job, who had
Wow.
financial security,
Yep.
who just all of these things, on paper completely checked out, and served as my dad since I was 2, and
Yep.
then, ended up violating me at the age of 11 and beyond. So definitely what you're saying speaks true to my story, and I'm assuming countless others that are watching as well.
I'm sure it does. And again, any opportunity that you have to grab a level of control in a situation where you felt out of control, it definitely makes a difference.
So Tanya, it's because I'm talking to you now, and obviously we've talked offline, and you're so incredibly strong and amazing. But what was the first step that you took to really like gaining the strength and really like recognizing your own resilience and owning it?
You know, what happened was when I was in college, I used to rage a lot. I was very angry. You know, there's a point when you start to realize and actualize what has happened in your life. There were moments where I was just livid that no one that was an adult or guardian took the opportunity to make sure that I, as a child, was in a safe space. You know, we get woke in
Yeah.
college and start realizing things. So as I continue to understand what parenting really is about and giving kids an opportunity to live their best life, I realized, man, I did not live my best life and I'm not happy about it. And I'm upset. And I used to get angry. Every little thing would set me off. Everything. I got into physical altercations in college. That's crazy. That should not happen.
There's
But
no shoulds though. Like that's what needed to happen to get you here, you know?
it did.
Yeah.
And with that, because I've had moments of glee and moments of just pure joy, I decided I didn't like that. Like there were moments I had to step back and I was just like, I don't like feeling angry.
Yeah.
I don't like being sad. I don't like feeling isolated. I don't like these negative feelings. And being alone, I think it was probably my junior or senior year, I was a RA and I had my own place by myself.
Yeah.
And those moments of isolation where I could actually just sit and think, I made a decision that I don't like these negative feelings that I have, not for my mother, even though I wasn't happy about the situations. And yeah, there's a level of blame that goes into a parent making decisions that put their child in danger. I was angry about that. We needed to talk about it. So I picked up the phone and we talked about it for about 3 or 4 hours. Again, difficult conversations. They were very hard. It was very emotional. But at that moment too, I realized you can't get an answer to a question unless you ask it, even if you're scared about what the answer would be.
Yeah.
You can't resolve a problem until you actually go out and look for the answer. And sometimes there is no answer, no right or wrong answer. It's just what it is. How do you deal with that? Those are tough questions that I had to ask myself. Okay, this is the answer. What are you going to do with it now? How much longer are you going to be mad about these things? So while I was going through that, dealing with some of those things with my mother, I was also still writing letters to the courts in California to make sure that they kept this murderer behind bars while I'm trying to get my college education. So it was just kept me busy. First of all, it kept me thinking, and then it kept me totally engaged in the process. And every time I took a step to get an answer, resolve a problem, fix a relationship, it made me feel good because I don't like broken relationships. I don't like things going unsaid. You can't fix it if it's unsaid. Digging deep into some of the issues that had taken place and deciding who I wanted to be as a mother, as a woman, as a community engagement individual, making those decisions and taking the steps to be that person was what got me through it. Because I realized every time I did something that gave me knowledge or gave me results or gave me answers, it was empowering. It was not knowing is hard, right? When things happen to you and you just don't know and your mind is wondering, your mind is racing, your negative self-talking, there's nothing good about not knowing. So it always cracks me up when people are just like, oh yeah, never mind. I don't know. I don't know. No.
Yeah.
You need to
You're
know.
like, you just completely stepped out of your power.
Right.
Wow.
So then I became not just an advocate for myself. It was for, the girls that might come after me. It was for the girls that I don't know yet. Once I graduated and moved to the Bay Area, I also became a coach. I was a cheer coach and I used to run across young girls that, some of them I love them to death now. But when I first met them, I'd be like, who are these girls? Like, what's wrong with these girls? They're crazy. But we started having those uncomfortable conversations. Like, what is going on with you? And finding out that some of the things that were going on with them, one was beyond their control. Two, things they just needed to talk about and didn't have anyone to talk about.
Yeah.
So then becoming that advocate for these young people that don't have anyone to talk to, don't feel like they have anyone to trust, that don't feel like they have anyone advocating for them, being put in situations where you can make a difference or at least help someone that might have been in a situation like mine or similar to mine. And for the last, 20 something years, I've just been very heavily involved in youth, the things that involve the youth in our community, whether it's me directly coaching or being a part of a council or something that's making a difference in the communities that we live in for our youth. Because I'll be honest, if it was not for these unsuspecting angels in my family, in my life, in my neighborhood, in my schools, coaches, counselors, just being kind, I wouldn't still be here. There's absolutely no way. So when I did write my book, I talked about some of them. I needed to let them know that day when you made sure that I got home from practice without me having to ask, that day when you made sure I was fed and, you didn't ask about my situation, you just did what a kind-hearted person would do. That changed my life. That saved my life. That was something that made me feel valued as a person. Those things matter. So I did want to make sure that I spent as much time as I possibly could letting people know just being kind matters. You never know what small thing that you do as a human being can change the life of someone else, especially a young person who's still trying to figure it out.
100%. I love that so much. And I was going to say for anyone listening, obviously the audience, probably primarily people who have suffered through trauma themselves and are looking to either use their story for good or help others with it or just up-level their own healing journey. But then those listening who are trying to figure out how to best support a friend or a loved one who has gone through trauma, like that, it really doesn't take, a lot. It takes the kindness. It takes love. I know for my own journey, I had certain teachers along my journey who would pull me aside after class and they'd say, hey, are you okay? And even that, and I would lie and say yes, of course. So there's that part of it, but it helped me check myself in my head and say, am I really okay? Exactly. And I knew that I wasn't, but had they not asked, I don't think I would have ever gotten to the point of actually expressing and voicing that I wasn't okay.
Absolutely.
And I can pinpoint, and you probably can as well, all of those little moments where to them, they probably don't even remember, but to me, it made all the difference.
Man, absolutely. Human kindness is so underrated. People think that it's these big gestures, these big donations, these big over the top things that they do that makes the difference. It's not. It's the basic kindness that humans should be showing each other on a regular basis that can definitely save a life.
Yeah.
That's it.
100%. It's crazy. Even recently I started my social media presence and just thinking, I'll share tips and tricks for how I overcame trauma and some resources. And I don't even have a big following yet, admittedly. And I've had messages, people saying, hey, like this post, enabled me to have the courage to go to therapy for the first time or have that uncomfortable conversation with my mom. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm not even doing, to me, I'm just, active on social media. But so it's, to me, I'm not doing some grandiose gesture. It really doesn't take a lot for all of us to come together and really support one another in our healing journeys and then support those who have yet to disclose, know that they're coming into a community of wide open arms ready to help facilitate that.
Absolutely. And not one thing is the right answer. Not one thing is going to be the solution because we are human and we change and our moods change and our circumstances change. Your solution's going to change. It's not even going to be the same on Monday as it is on Friday. But having these open conversations allows people to know if it doesn't work, it's not because you're crazy. It doesn't work because maybe you just need to try something else.
Mhm.
Us having open dialogue in this community of survivors allows for others that are still trying to figure out what works, what moves them forward, what moves them out of this bad space. And don't get it twisted. We do still find ourselves in that space sometimes where we're just stuck and
Yeah.
trying to understand what is this feeling that I have right now. And I need to get out of this. It's okay, I think, sometimes to sit in it
Mhm.
because it's important to feel, but it's also important to know, okay, now I need to move my feet before I get stuck and planted in a place that has no progress and no productivity and no sunshine. It's not
Yeah.
okay to stay there. So, you have communities like this that you can come back to and just be like, let me find that inspiration to move forward, to get out of this space and to go help someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question for you, for those listening in who are really eager to initiate that conversation, or they feel they have that inner knowing that they want to be released from years of trauma, or even that they've been dealing and processing and they've disclosed about the trauma that they've gone through, but they have to have that healing conversation or that clearing conversation with somebody. What advice do you have for them?
My advice is go with it. Say what you feel like you need to say. Ask what it is you feel like that needs answered for you to be okay. It's really not your problem when other people cannot face an ugly truth. But we so often get stuck with it, right? We get stuck with other people's issues because they don't want to accept the responsibility or their part in a situation. My best advice is just to put on your big boy or your big girl underwear and get ready for the truth. You can handle it. You've already dealt with the trauma and the drama that goes along with being put in the situation in the first place. You've already survived that. What could be worse than what you've already been through? The truth of it, you are the truth.
Yeah.
Your survival is the truth. You have to be ready for those tough conversations. What's really important to also understand is everybody's not ready. So even when you feel like you're ready to handle it, you're ready to battle it out with whatever this truth is and whoever else is involved so that you can heal, be cautious. Not everyone is ready for that. And some will shut you down. It doesn't matter as long as you are aware of what the truth is or that it is not your issue. Your problem is not their problem. Your problem is healing. Their problem is whatever truth it is that got them in the situation or to be a part of this ugliness in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Your healing is most important. Their denial is not your problem. That is something, once we are able to really heal. When I wrote my book, I knew some people would be receptive of it and some would not. The unfortunate part is those that I really hoped it would be received by and we could have these honest conversations shut down. And so those wounds will probably never be healed. Never know. But what I do know is that my truth is now in writing. I had to cut out some toxic relationships because, again, not everybody's ready to put on their big girl or big boy underwear and deal with, some ugliness. But as we are here as a community to support each other, there are people out there that still support secrets and lies. Let them live in that. We'll be all right. We have each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the empowerment that comes along with these conversations and this incredible freedom that they can bring. And so even as you said, if people aren't receptive at first, stand in your powers, keep having the conversations and find people who are. I also had to cut out some toxic relationships. I also had people who rejected me and had to break those relationships. And at the time it was painful, but now looking back, what a blessing. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else before we talk about your free gift that you'd like to share with the audience?
Not so much. I guess my social media is around. Anyone that wants to chat, just have some open conversation, talk about different methods, vent. I'm open.
Right?
I'm always open to that. Hey, absolutely. Anytime.
100%. Okay. Well, so for everyone listening, we've been talking a lot about Tanya's book. So the title of it is Child's Memories of Cartoon and Murder. So it's her memoir, a beautifully written book. So thank you, Tanya, for sharing some insights from it with us today. So the free gift is if you purchase the book, you can find it on Amazon, or if you want to find it on Tanya's website, you can go there as well. With the purchase of this book, which really dives into her trauma, predatory behavior, generational dysfunction, in addition to domestic violence, you will get a free signed copy of her latest book, which I'm so excited for, and I'm signing up for this free gift, which is Leadership Through Personal PR. And this dives into what it takes to really get through trauma, pave a path of leadership, personal, professional growth and development through your story. And for me, I'm really excited about it because I'm assuming it has tidbits and information on how you can really use your personal story to catapult you forward into a new level of leadership and really like standing in your power.
Absolutely. And we will have stories from other leaders and other individuals that have gone through some things to be able to step into their niche and their expertise and, be able to shine, because at the end of the day, the things that take us into our power are the things that can contribute to our professional achievements. It takes a lot to get through that stuff. You gotta be a little stubborn, right? A little tenacious.
I feel called out right now, Tanya.
Right. A little detail oriented, but a little persuasive. But all of those things are definitely things we'll talk about. We'll get into that and really just stepping into your leadership, your niche, and how to take your career to the next level using all those amazing characteristics.
Amazing. And so if you use the link below and enter the code leadership, and I'll also put all this information here for you, after you purchase the memoir through Amazon, go ahead and use the code leadership in the notes section to get your free copy of the Leadership Through Personal PR.
I got you guys covered.
What?
I got you covered.
Yes. And it's a signed copy. So get on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tanya, so much for your time today, your heart, for sharing your story, and for empowering everyone listening to have those really difficult conversations that are so important.
And thank you for having a platform for us to share and support each other.
Yes, absolutely. This has been such a pleasure, and I'm so excited to continue the conversation with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye.